everyone, my name is Elizabeth. This is Frizzy Lizzie Stitches, and today I'm going to show you how I use Notion to keep track of all of my cross-stitch projects. Hello everybody. So today is December the 9th of 2023, and it has been just about a year since I last showed you my Notion setup. Specifically for cross-stitch. I do use Notion for several other personal things, like tracking packages and buying gifts and just like general to-do items. But today I'm just going to show you the cross-stitch portion of all of that. I got a lot of people watched my last Notion video, which was kind of lumped in with my 2023 Whip Parade video, and that will be linked in the description box if you haven't seen that and you're interested. But I have changed a lot of things with my Notion since I last showed that video. So I figured it was time for an update, just to kind of show you the tweaks that I've made to it to work better for me. And I also am going to share with you an updated template that will be linked in the description box if you are interested in using Notion the same way I'm using Notion to track your cross stitch or even any other craft that you do, to track all your projects. So I'm gonna get my screen recording going, if I can remember how to do that actually. But yes. Oh, here we go. I think it's working. Yes. So this is kind of like my cross-stitch homepage, if you will. I just put Frizzy Lizzie Stitches here because that's my cross-stitch persona online. And the tab here that gets used the most is this cross-stitch projects. That is where all of my projects are kept, and I can track, what is part of stash, what is WIP, etc. And then I have some other links here. Some of them were like experiments that didn't really work out, and some of them are just literally notes pages with just like helpful information that I like to use for posting to Instagram, or if I just have some ideas that I want to brain dump into Notion just to have it written down somewhere, instead of just hanging out in my brain. And then I do have this little whip count thing on the side here. It does not connect to my database that has all my projects, so I can just change this number at will. But I just like having this here as kind of like a quick view of that's how many whips I have right now. And this is a widget that I don't think I could copy this into the template because it was gonna track my same widget. So, but the company that does that is called Indify, INDIFI, or FY, and I will link that below as well in case you want to mess around with widgets. But that's just kind of a fun extra thing to have there. Oops. So if you scroll down, there's a calendar, and this is a new thing, honestly, within the past month that I've been using this. So basically, I just have a calendar, obviously, and when I stitch, I can click this plus button, and I usually just put the date here, and then I can select a project that I worked on. So I'll just make something up, and then I can say, okay, this is a WIP, or maybe this was a new start, maybe I finished it, or maybe I spent the day FFOing this project. And then I also have some stuff in here for YouTube, just for me, because it helps me know what I did on what day. But this would be a WIP, and then I can put however many stitches I stitched that day. If it's not in Pattern Keeper and I don't know the stitches, then I'll just leave that blank. And then the notes section, I will kind of describe, maybe I worked on a certain motif or something like that, just to kind of give me an idea of what I put into that project that day. So this is not real life, so I'm gonna delete that now. But yeah, so you can see last weekend I spent a lot of time working on Quaker Gardens. I also filmed and edited a YouTube video, so that's on there, and etc. So let's see, because last month is kind of when I started using it for real. So you can see I did a lot of stitching during the week of Thanksgiving. So it's just kind of cool to see at a glance like which days you're working on which projects. It helps me for YouTube because then I can know like, hey, that's the last time I filmed, what have I worked on since then, so that I'm not repeating myself when I do my floss tube updates. And then if you keep scrolling down, I have a whole bunch of links here that are just kind of helpful things for me. This Google Sheets I don't actually use anymore because I have fully moved my projects into Notion. But then I also have a link to my floss inventory, which I do track in Google Sheets. A DMC thread card, which is just the Lord Libidan like picture of all the different DMC flosses. I don't use Toggle anymore. That used to be like a time tracking thing I used. And then I just have links to my YouTube, Instagram, Buy Me a Coffee, my Linktree, and I also have a link to my Love Boat Sampler floss conversion. And then over here, I just kind of have some generic to-do items that I want to get done in the near future. So, you know, I can mark this one off after I'm done with this today. But I also put other crafts in here. So like crochet obviously isn't cross stitch, but I have it in here just to be like, that's something I want to be working on. And then I have WIPGO in here, which I will get into how I did this in a moment, but I do have them set up as like a gallery so you can view photos, and I will attach a photo when the WIPGO goal is complete. And I think that's the end of kind of my homepage. So I'm going to go back up to the top and I'm going to walk you through the cross stitch projects database, because that's the one that is like kind of the most important of all this. And then after that I will kind of talk about the WIPGO database and how I use it. Okay, so inside of the cross stitch projects, I have a little description here that is kind of my idea of what is a small, medium, large, etc. sized project. So I just have a key here for myself so that I can kind of be like, okay, this is a medium project. So that when I'm looking at starting things or finishing things, I have a good idea of like how big that project really is, so I can give myself realistic expectations of when I might finish that project. So that's there. The very first tab, which is that says all here, is, if my computer will load, there we go, is kind of where all of this stuff is. And right now it's filtered and sorted. So if right now I unchecked UFO because I didn't want to see those, but for this video I will select everything just so you can kind of get an idea. And then right now it's sorted by % complete, which is fine. We'll leave it that way. So basically I have, it's kind of the same as I did in my other one. I still have the pattern. I do like to assign an emoji to it just for fun. The designer, which I do use as a select, not just a type in field. There's not really any real reason for that other than I just felt like it. And then I have the status, which is a very important field, and my different status options are, I have a few of them, but they are broken down into to-do, in progress, and complete. So in the to-do section I have wishes, which are charts that I want to stitch, but I don't have the chart and I don't have any fabric or floss for it. Pattern stash is charts that I have the pattern for, but I have not put any floss or fabric with it. A KIP, which is a kit in progress. I don't know who coined that phrase, but I know Marjorie from Marjorie Maid uses it a lot, and I just think it's really smart. But basically, it's a kit that you have in progress. So for me, this means I have the chart, and it either has floss or it has fabric, or maybe a little bit of both. Full kit is obviously a full kit. Oops. And a UFO is an unfinished object. So that is a project that I have abandoned, and I don't intend on returning to it, but it's still in here in case the off chance that I do decide to pick it back up again. And then for the in progress section, I have passive whip, WIPGO called, and active whip. Passive whips are whips that I'm not actively working on right now. Anything that just kind of, I'm not thinking about it, it's on the back burner. That is a passive whip. WIPGO called is a project that is on my WIPGO board, and that goal has been called, so I should kind of think of that as like next to work on. And then active whip are the projects that I'm actively working on. I like to try to keep only like 3 or 4 projects in the active whip section, just because it kind of helps me prioritize which projects I'm going to spend my time on, either that week or the next 2 weeks or whatever. And then obviously for complete, we have finishes and we have FFOs. And FFO is just a fully finished object. So a finish would be I put all the stitches into the project, and FFO would be I took that finished stitchy project and I put it in a frame, I turned it into a flat fold, I made it into a pillow, etc. So those are kind of the to-do, like the different status options that I have in here. Start date and finish date, pretty self-explanatory. Size is also based on what I have written up here in the project key. And then I also recently included a stitch count, and this is just a type whatever you want in field, but I do put like the number of stitches, like the height and length or whatever. And then I also have another type whatever you want field, which is fabric and floss, which I can, usually I just write the fabric, and sometimes I'll write the floss if it is like, actually I think all of these just say the fabric, so I don't know why I put the floss in here. But sometimes if I'm not using the called for, I might make a note in there, but for the most part I really only put what the fabric is. And you can definitely go further into it and have a column for the count of fabric and if it's Aida or linen and all that sort of stuff, but I just find that it's easier for me to just type out whatever fabric I'm using, because I'm not trying to really like track really hardcore what fabric is being used for what project. I have a percent complete, that's what all these circles are for. It is a number field, so you just type any number 0 through 100 and then it will turn it into a little pie chart basically. And then the current goal is just like an open field where I can put anything I want. So if I'm like, you know, if I want to get, maybe it was called for WIPGO and I want to type in what the WIPGO goal is for that project in this, and then when I'm done with it, I'll just delete it. Or if it's not part of WIPGO and I just want to work on it for 5 days or something like that, I can put that in there just so I kind of have an idea of what I want to be happening. This check mark box is to note whether or not this pattern is in Pattern Keeper. That's just helpful to me, I guess, to see at a glance like how many of my patterns are in Pattern Keeper. And then this is where it gets a little fun. So I have a portion for cover photo, which you can upload a photo in here, which you will see why that is important in a moment. And then you can also upload a photo in here for what the finished project is. And then I just have like a generic notes field, and then I also have these tags, which I don't really use that often. I just started this like a couple months ago, but I do have various items in here like Smalls Exchange, Sal, Monochromatic, Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, Halloween, Christmas, Animal, Stitchy, House, Food, Quote, Full Coverage, Plants, Sampler, Quaker, that sort of stuff. Just so another way to kind of get at a glance like what kinds of things am I stitching on. And then this last column, I'm not even going to talk about this because this is still an experiment. But yes, anyway, so we will move on to the WIP Kanban. This is just, it has like the different columns for the different statuses. So actually I don't want to know what the UFOs are. Is this all that hold on. Yeah, okay. So I only have a few, like as you can see on the right over here, there's a bunch of hidden groups. I don't really need these to be active on this tab because all I'm trying to do is see what is a passive whip, what is a WIPGO called, and what is an active whip. And then if I finish one of these things, then I can drag it over to finish. I feel like actually I had this hidden just because it was a lot to look at. So I think I just had these 3, honestly. That way I could drag all my whips between whatever status they were at. So usually when I'm done stitching my goal on the active whip, I would drag it back to passive whip. And if I did finish it, you can still like drag this over and drop it in there. But I'm not finished with that project, so I'm not going to do that. this also lets you know the number of all the items in there, so this is an easy way to know that I have, 9, 10, 11, 12 whips. This is my favorite new thing that I've done. I have added photos to all of my projects so that I can see a gallery of what my projects are and kind of what status they're in. And honestly, I use this page way more than the WIP Kanban page. So this one, as you can see, it actually has photos for what the projects are. And then I also have the start date, the size, the percent complete, and then the current goal as showing on each of these little cards. So you can see I have the fox and the Christmas wreath and active whip because these are the projects that I want to focus on for Christmas time. Because as you can tell, it is Christmas time. And then, my Sweetheart Campfire was on my WIPGO board. It's on there 2 times to stitch 1,000 stitches each. So I have this sitting in there to work on next. I'm sorry for all the jingling. My cat is playing with a toy or something. And then down here you can see all my passive whips. So I like seeing this because then I can really get a good idea of like what I have open right now, what they look like or what they're supposed to look like, and kind of get a good visual of what is on my plate right now. And under the same kind of theme of how this page looks, I also have a finishes, and this is more of like a Hall of Fame, if you will, because obviously I'm done with these. Some of them need to be FFO'd, but I'm not really focused on that. So, and it is broken up into years. So these are all the things I finished in 2023. These are all the things I finished in 2022. All the things I finished in 2021, and then I didn't finish anything in 2020 because I was not stitching in 2020. Or I just started at the end of that year. So anyway, but yeah, so it's kind of cool to see all of my finishes kind of just visually. It's very satisfying to me, and I love adding the picture in here when I'm done with the project, so that's really fun. And then I also have, this is new as well, this is my stash gallery. So these are all the projects that I either have, and these are all the full kits, kips, pattern stash, and wishes. So I have the full kits at the top, and I also on here have this like little experimental thing that I'm working on, because if I check the box it'll show up on this other tab, because I'm trying to get an idea of like these are the things I might want to start in 2024. But like I said, I'm not really going to go into that because I haven't worked out the kinks yet. But yes, so I have, these are some full kits. These are some charts that I have the pattern and either some floss or fabric for, and then these are charts that I have the pattern for. And then all of this stuff down here is stuff that I want to stitch, but I do not have the pattern. And this is also like a nice way for me to kind of limit purchasing things, because I can come in here and, if I want to purchase a chart, because I want to stitch something, I can add it here, and so I can look at it whenever I want. And if I one day come in here and I look at something, I'm like, you know what, I really don't want to stitch that, I can just remove it from here, and then I don't have to worry about having bought a chart and then feel like I need to stitch it, just because it was super popular at the moment I saw it, and now I'm not really that into it. And then it's kind of the same thing for these, like the charts that I do have that I haven't stitched yet, is that it gives me a good idea of what I have. So instead of going out and buying a new chart, I can just kind of shop for my stash and be like, oh, look at these patterns I have. Which one do I really want to stitch on? And then I can kind of go from there and pick fabric and floss from my stash or whatever. So that's kind of my idea of how this page is helpful to me. And then I don't know if I updated the template with this, but I did add this starts a few days ago. And I just thought this was interesting because I was trying to figure out kind of the ratio of how many things I was starting versus how many things I was finishing. And basically it was kind of 1 for 1 for the most part. But this was kind of fun to see because some of these I don't actually have pictures in for because I just created this, but you could see like I started 14 things in 2021. I started 12 things in 2022, and I started 13 things this year. So I thought it was just a kind of a nice way to see kind of what all I started in each year, and it kind of matches the finishes tab except for it doesn't show the finish date, it shows the start date on that one, but kind of nice to compare. So like I've only finished 9 things in 2023 so far, but I started, 13, so obviously my whip count has gone up after that. But yeah, so that's kind of the project section. Each one of these cards you can click on and it will open that project. I don't really keep anything in the body of the project, really. But you can always add, so like this one doesn't have a cover photo in it, but if you wanted to add one, you would just choose a file and it would put it in there. So yeah, there are some where I've added notes to it. So let's see. So Quaker Gardens is like a round robin that I'm doing with my friends. So if you go in here and scroll down, I actually added in like photos of what my stitching was on everybody's project. So that's been kind of fun to kind of put that in here and kind of like have them all in one place. And then I also noted like what fabric and floss people were using, so I could remember for my Instagram captions. And yeah, so just a quick little, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but also I created this, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I will get back to you with the best and help you out the best I can. I'm not a Notion expert by any means. I kind of have been, I just really like organizing things, so this is something that I just play around with when I feel like I want to organize my stitching. But yes, so I'm going to go back to the home page here and then go to WIPGO, and let's see, so it's down here. I have it as like 3 sections, so I have a table which literally just lists out, I have it filtered right now so it's only showing stuff that's called, but let's see, let me just take that off, I guess. So I have, and I've changed this for WIPGO next year, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what I did this year. So I had all the numbers, 1 through 25. I had the project, what the goal was for the project, and then I had the status, which I had the status options were, not called, called, in work, not called, in work, called, complete, not called, and complete, called. And then I had the month that it was like picked for, and then when I was done, I would upload a finished photo. That way when I came over to the board, I can see which ones I finished based on whether, well, it has a status there, but also it's just very satisfying to fill this board out and have all those pictures of like my completed goal. So it just fills up my heart, But for WIPGO this year, I've actually decided that I'm going to go a little less specific. And so I have it here, and I will eventually turn this into like a show up in full in the page like the other one was. But basically I switched the goal and the project around. So I don't have any projects assigned to any of these WIPGO spots. I only have goals set. So like for this one, for example, stitch 500 stitches or 3 days on a project with an animal. So I know that when that gets called, if it's in Pattern Keeper, I will stitch 500 stitches. If it's not in Pattern Keeper, then I will stitch on it for 3 days. And I will just pick any project that I have at that moment that has an animal on it. That way I have a little bit more choice in what I get to stitch on, but I'm still like aiming towards some sort of goal and getting to participate in the community. And then I also I still have the month that called, but I broke up the status into 2 sections. So I have one that's just called or not called, and then this other one is to do, in work, and complete. That way they're just kind of separate and I don't have to have a gajillion options for one column. And then the same thing, I'm going to have the photo in there so that when I go to the board, it will show me, I can put the picture of my finish in there so I can see at a glance which goals I have completed so far. So now this exact template for WIPGO will be in the template that I share below, including all of the prompts that I have created for myself. So if you want to do WIPGO that way as well, you are more than welcome to copy. That is why I'm providing that as a resource. WIPGO, if you're not familiar, is kind of the brainchild of Jessie Marie Does Stuff, and I will also link her stuff below because she's the one that tells you what the numbers are when they're called. She is the one that can give you all the details about how WIPGO works if you've never used it before. This is just the tool that I have created for myself to track my progress. So yeah, that is pretty much it for my Stitchy Notion. I will go down to the template that I have made to share with all of you. It looks basically the same. I did put my links at the top here, and I will have a link to the video after this when I post it. The projects is right in here. Kind of the same thing. I do have one example in here so that you can kind of get an idea of how it's supposed to be filled out. And it has everything except for the sample page that I was messing around with. They're just named different. I think I renamed them on mine so they would all show up on one line, because this one says one more. But yeah, they all should function the same. If something is not working properly, let me know and I'll fix it. But yes. And then back to the main page for the template. I have a tracker or stitching tracker in here, just like I showed you on mine. If you don't want it there, all you have to do is delete it. And then I have like a sample checklist here. I do have a link to the bare, empty template for the DMC Google Sheet document that I use. So if you want to use that as well, I also left the DMC thread card in here, and I left my Love Boat sampler floss conversion in there in case you're curious. And then I have the WIPGO, which is the same WIPGO 2024 that I showed you just now, the same prompts and whatnot. So yeah, and then you can also, I don't think I mentioned this, but you can also change the status from this page as well. So, but yeah, so that's gonna be it for this video. Hopefully it was gonna be pretty short and sweet. It looks like I'm at 27 minutes, but we will see with editing what we can cut that down to. So yes, I hope you all have a very happy Christmas and a very happy New Year, and that you get, organize your stitching however you want, or don't organize it if that's your vibe. And I hope that if this was something that you wanted to try out, that this video was helpful for you. So have a great day, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.